What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Shadow Nexus 13. I'm your host, Justin, aka Thernodian. So, first off, I want to cleanse the space, right? And then I'm going to talk about something that needs to be addressed. Even though a lot of people would disagree with even considering what this is going to be about and why I'm doing it. I don't really care what others think when it comes to the subject and matter at hand, which we'll get into here shortly. The reason that I'm doing this has to do with my son, right? So I'm just asking everybody to just hold some space for me, right? While I address this, because I'm not the type of person who runs away from problems and doesn't face things head on. It's just not who I am. I used to be that person, but when you go through all the things that I've went through on my journey, well, what you get is a completely transformed soul and transmuted human being. When you go from your deepest, darkest, abyssal descent and everything unravels and becomes undone, and you unlearn everything you used to know and relearn things, and you are a totality that amounts to this strength of many other strengths, right? And I'm doing this video for clarity that's for my son and for others to understand as well, okay? So, cleansing any negative residual energies that is around. Calling in my ancestors, my spirit guides, the elementals, the ancient ones, for strength, my spiritual guides, Hecate, higher self, and shadow self. So, if any of you have seen the comments, right? I'm not 100% sure that it's my son that's making these comments. He's 22 years old. His name is Avery. And this is my love. This is the love of my life, right? My best friend, okay? So it's not something that I take lightly. But I also respectively, I have removed comments from certain videos because I felt that it was inappropriate for him, son, if it really is you, this is me talking to you. You know, appropriate place and time for everything, right? But here's the thing. I'm this man who has dealt with so many deceptive people in my life, right? That, there's certain people that's been around in my life for the overall experiences pertaining to the memory claims that he's making, right? So, what you say, there were moments and times where there were certain individuals around who knew the same thing, right? So, it could be you, it couldn't be you. There's always that possibility, right? And then there's all the times that while I worked on my autobiography, okay, that I dealt with a hacker who got into my information and completely rendered two PCs I had useless, stole very sensitive information, messed up my autobiography several times. I've had to rewrite it. And inside that autobiography, when people want to learn everything about you, right, and they have issues themselves, well, then, and this has happened plenty of times with me where I have, it took a long time for me to deal with this one particular scammer hacker who caused and wreaked havoc not only to my credit report, but my personal identity, my personal information. There was a lot that, I mean, this person went as far to the extent of making profiles posing as a woman and had information about me that I never told anyone. So when you deal with something like that, I have to question everything. I have to, with absolute surrender, right? So there's that. So if I really am talking to my son, then you need to understand something. And that something is that I'm looking at everything logical and so much more than, right? And that so much more than has to do with when you question everything and you trust your inner knowing, right? There are times when your inner knowing and your intuition will be silent. And especially when you're going through transformation, right? Spiritual transformation, inner healing, and you've done all the work that I have. See, I'm not the person that people remember me as because I have rediscovered. I have been shattered and scattered throughout my entire journey, my soul, right? I've had to regather my soul shards. And there's some of you out there who understand exactly what it is that I'm talking about. And then there's others of you who have no clue. It requires a shamanic journey to piece yourself back together and become whole again. And then that's going through a labyrinth of deep residual subconscious trauma and finding confidence again, finding new strengths, meeting yourself again, parts of yourself that you forgot, as well as meeting new parts of yourself that you never knew existed. And throughout that journey, and it's not easy, of time and healing and release and surrender, well, then you start becoming this completely renewed whole version of your true, genuine, authentic soul self, so that you can step into who you are truly meant to be. And that's where I'm at on my journey. Okay? So, that being said, when you have my friend, she doesn't like to say understanding, right? So when you have the deep knowing understanding, because I'm the same way, that, throughout the spiritual journey, right? When you do the deep inner healing work, okay, and you become this renewed, reborn self, right? You have you have you have to understand, right, that the reason certain things happen throughout our journey is for reasons that are so much bigger than us. And it's those bigger reasons that it is why we become who we are truly meant to be. And regardless of the fact that everybody's different and not everybody has the same belief, not everybody has the same knowledge, blase, blase, right? Well, I want to talk about something a little bit more because perhaps it might help shed some light to not only my son, if I'm really talking to my son, but it'll also shed some light for other people as well. And this might help a lot of people out, because I'm sharing my own personal journey here. So, all right, you know, I don't want to get too deeply personal, but I'll say what I can. What I feel is necessary. What I feel guided to say is what I'll say here, and I'll leave it at that. So, in truth, right? My son's mom, right? And this has nothing to do with putting the blame on anybody else whatsoever. So please don't misconstrue my words or put words in my mouth or anything as such. Just listen. And if you can relate, drop a comment and, help me help others understand. But my son's mom, when we met each other, it was through the influences of drugs and alcohol, right? We were young, we were dumb, and everybody has this young and dumb journey, right? Regardless of how different they are, we all go through a journey of uh, lessons learned, right? And when we go kamikaze, we're not necessarily thinking and making choices truly from our heart. It's more hormones and sex. It's hormones, sex. You know, when I was younger, I was stupid, and I uh, I wasn't making choices from the heart. You know, a lot of the thinking was, sexual desire, lust, and you know, but regardless of that, doesn't mean that I never had feelings for his mom. On the contrary, I loved his mom very much, but I was young, and there's a lot of my journey earlier, before I even met her, that would make so much more sense as to, as to why and how certain things came to be, right? I started my teenage life after losing my childhood life, right? When after going through a my parents having a divorce. My dad was a heavy alcoholic. My mom was a very, very extreme drug addict. And she was into meth and cocaine and so much more, right? And that is the truth. And so I had the hallmark life as a kid, even though I wasn't aware of everything that was going on with my parents, knowing what I know now in order for me to make that claim and say that. If you knew anybody in my family, like my sister or my aunts, they would tell you, they would confirm exactly what I'm saying, that I'm telling the truth. And so my parents didn't work out because my dad liked to think with his dick, and you know, they were partiers too. They wasn't thinking from their heart space either, right? So there's a lot of major weighing factors that come into play of how things play out throughout time, right? The deeper understanding, right? So fast forward, because I don't want to get too deep into that. That's just that. They divorced, right? I had a hallmark life where, I lived in a really nice house. My dad owned his own business. I was born into arbory. I was an arborist in an arborist family. And my mom didn't have to work, but she was a workaholic and liked working anyways. She liked doing yard sales and stuff like that, right? But my mom had a very funny personality, right? And my dad, he had a good personality too. But the two just clashed, right? They just couldn't. Uh, it got toxic for them. And I didn't know this terminology and all these things then. I was just a child. But I lived in a nice house. I grew up with a nice business. If I wanted something, I had it, right? If I wanted a Sega Genesis or Game Gear, I had it. If I wanted a brand new bike, the best of the best, I had it, right? So I was spoiled somewhat. But money doesn't buy happiness either. It just doesn't. And anybody who will tell you that it does is wrong. It doesn't buy happiness. The only thing that buys happiness is inner peace. And it takes a lot to get there. And not everybody has it the same. So let's fast forward. I dealt with a lot of domestic violence, and I watched my dad beat the fuck out of my mom, douse gasoline on her, set her on fire. I had a very traumatic childhood growing up. And it was really difficult because even though I had a good life, like I lived with plenty of money and not having a want for anything. Like I had everything I needed and some. My family had a very dark history, ancestrally, lineages on both sides. But that's a story for a later time. The point is, when people don't deal with shadows, and there's a lot of violence going on that you grow up around, I was that kid that didn't have a sense of security the way that a lot do have, is even though there's some that like me haven't. So when my mom got tired of dealing with my dad's craziness, right? And my mom was not completely innocent, right? She fled state with me. And I blamed her for taking me away from my dad. And I wanted to live with my dad because that's where home was. Being out in the car on the road, moving to another state, not, you know, that shatters your world in a way that, what, because, dude, I pled with my mom, like, I want you and dad to be back together. I want to be, you know, I want to go back home, right? And that never happened. And then my mom's addiction grew worse, and uh, she threw away the, you know, she put me in institutions and ran with truck drivers to do meth, and I got thrown away. I got thrown away for a drug addiction that she wanted because of her habits. And, you know, I had years of therapy with my mom, and I went through therapy and all that stuff. And I went through anger management, and I successfully completed anger management and counseling and all that stuff, right? I've done that. I've done the work there. I've done all that, right? And, so before my mom died, I had peace with my mom. I did. And my mom's with me now. And so is my dad. And I love both my parents unconditionally, regardless of their differences, because they gave me the biggest strengths. I'm the best of both worlds and so much more, right? Now, there's that. Just simply put, right? So, his mom and me were kamikaze and reckless too. And when she got with my best friend, it shattered my world. And I did everything in my power to be cool with her while doing everything in my power to forgive her when I didn't have self forgiveness yet. So, going to birthday parties and Christmas with a family that's no longer yours, watching your ex with your friend is really difficult to do. And I did everything that I could to do it for my son. But there came a point in time where I couldn't bear it anymore. I couldn't. I didn't have enough self love. I was pouring from an empty cup. I didn't know who I was. And I was searching for answers. And when you search for answers like that, and you have people in your ear telling you to stop partying all the time, right? Well, what you have is the world's out to get you. Everybody hates you. That was me. Okay. And that's a really hard and difficult place to be. And this isn't, I can't say that it's not about me, right? Because I play a role in this, right? In my son's life. And it took me years to get to where I'm at now. Because when you've had the journey that I've had, it hasn't been fucking easy. It's not easy. And I had to get tired. I had to get sick and fucking tired of partying, right? And because what I was doing was, by drinking and drugging, I was trying to numb the emotional pain. I was trying to fill a void of loss, the hole in my chest that you can't. It's impossible. There's not a drug on this planet that will fill the void in your chest. And that void that's there is called inner peace. When you're not whole, you're incomplete, you're shattered, you're broken, and you don't even have the answers, right? So when I backed away, because unlike my dad and all those that came before him, generation upon generation, folks, what we have here is I wanted to do it different. They say that, a man needs his dad, and that's true. I don't deny that one bit. But here's the thing. The masculine aspect of the male ego, while I agree that a boy needs his dad, right? Because I needed my dad. But you know what? When my dad was around, I didn't understand that man whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, I hated my dad for a long fucking time. A long time. My dad was a fucking asshole to me. And he was an asshole to my son too. And so, yeah, when you don't have control over other people, that's a whole another thing, right? So there comes that deeper relearning in order to heal, right? Now, keep in mind, during all of this stuff, that I didn't know anything about spiritual awakening, psychic awakening, dark night of the soul, the spiritual journey, intuition, none of that. None of it. None of that knowledge became present in my life and relevant significantly until 2017, right? Which I've mentioned and talked about in other videos. So, back to what I was saying about a boy needing his dad, right? And not every man is man enough in masculinity to even want to be there. Because let's face it, without judgment, a lot of people would say a lot of men are just pieces of shit. Simple and plain. A lot of men are just pieces of fucking shit. Right? Too scared to show their true emotions and all this and that. And or just not being there at all, right? That doesn't make somebody a piece of shit just because they're not there. Maybe they're just not capable because they don't believe in themselves enough, right? Or they just don't simply want to, right? Not everybody's meant to be a parent, and not everybody is ready to be a parent. So there's a lot of different factors that come to play here, right? And me growing up, never understanding my dad, because my dad was never easy on me. My dad was a dickhead. He was a fucking asshole to me, right? he talked down to me. He called me fucking fat. He called me worthless, a piece of fucking shit. You know, I watched him beat the shit out of my mom. You know, I had a lot of hatred for my fucking dad. I did. I did. Tough love, they say. A boy needs tough love. No, they don't. No, they don't. A boy needs understanding and communication. Right? A real man shows his true emotions. A real man looks their children in the eyes with the embrace of a mother. And now keep in mind here that masculine and feminine aren't gender and sex specific. It's energetic. But the qualities of masculine and feminine when it's out of balance between both sexes, we have both in us, male and female. Both masculine and feminine exists in male and female. Do your research and look it up. It's true. And I'm not going to get into all that right now, because what matters is when I backed away, right, and I took my downward spiral, it took me years. And the only thing that kept me holding on and giving a shit to have that want to live, the need to live, was the love for my son. Because I loved him. I love you so much, if it's really you watching, because I loved you so much that I didn't want to hurt you any further than being torn apart from each other, right? And we've already had discussions on the phone. In 2022, I was in Colorado and, you know, talked to my son. And then again in 2023, before my mom's passing, we spoke. And so it's not that, you know, I wasn't there physically, but there's all the times that I tried to come back in after leaving, and, you know, his mom didn't want nothing to do with it. She didn't care that I had presence. You know, she told me, we already took care of him. We already have this, we already have that. So ultimately, I just stepped away and I left it alone. Because I didn't have control over other people. And I was only trying to do respectably the best thing, right? They had their shit together more than I did. And so I just focused with the love that I had, holding on, being completely fucking torn and shattered and incomplete, to keep on pushing. And so, you know, when I bought a house and I was trying to make it with music, I made a song for him, and it's called Torn, and I'm actually going to leave the link in the description, so that anybody watching, if you want to hear the song that I made for him, he's heard it. He loves the song, actually, don't you? So I made that song for him because I knew that other family members that his mom was allowing him to be around when I was trying to get my shit together, would tell him about it, and he would be able to hear it. And that's how it went. That's how it happened. So, you see, when I've been doing all this healing work, and I've, you know, from after all these years, I'll be the first to tell you that I don't have nothing to hide, and I don't ever run from my problems, ever. But I also don't like cell phones. And financially, finding financial stability hasn't been a fucking easy journey, especially after 2020. It hasn't. That's why I have an LLC. And I'm still trying, right? I'm still trying. But the person I was years ago to the man that I am now, not the same person. I'm not. And I do want to get to know my son more. If I had it my way, my son would be in my life every fucking day. As much as we can withstand each other. Right? Facts. It would feel a huge, it'd be that missing puzzle piece that I've been fighting for all along. Right? And, so, if it wasn't for my spirit guides and what I believe in throughout my spiritual journey, I wouldn't still be alive. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't. I would have never found the strength to keep going when what I was missing was completely absent and void from my life. And in all honesty, giving a boy tough love is not the way to go. And I innately knew when I understood, after all the things that I relearned in life because of my spiritual journey, I had that deeper knowing and understanding that we're always connected energetically. I made you. You're me, in a way, with your own unique personalities and sets. And I'm always going to love you, and nothing's ever going to change that. But I refuse to be like my dad and, not show my emotions and, put you through the hell that all the generations before me never put an end to. I'm a generational curse breaker, son, and I'm here to break the family curse and complete my journey and my mission to help heal for a deeper understanding and help not only other people heal as well, but those who want to partake and participate on that journey. This is what I do. And so the last time we spoke on the phone, you told me that, you didn't want to go behind your girlfriend's back and you didn't want to go behind your mom's back. And I honor that. And what did I say? I told you, I just said, when you're ready, you'll know. Right? Honesty. Right? So I said honesty and knowing. Readiness. Acceptance. Right? And you probably didn't understand what I meant by that, but you probably do now. If this really is my son that's been dropping little comments here and there, right? I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea like I'm ignoring my son. That's not even far from it. Far from it. truth of the matter is, I've always wanted to be there, always, and I'm here now, and I can't wait until we reunite and we can talk about things more personally, because I'm doing the best that I can here not to spill my fucking emotions out all over the place, because I've already been a fucking huge crybaby over shit. I've already been transmuting, I've already been purging, and I'm trying to keep myself, just professional right now and not say too much, because what I'm doing here is reaching out, and I also just want to shed light and clarity. A lot of people would probably think I would never do that. Well, I'm not everybody else, and I don't shy away from things. I face them head on. So if this bothers anybody, I'm not sorry. I'm not. I'm not. But I refuse to sit here and not talk about it, not deal with it, not reach out, not help other people understand things. Because it's a learning. We learn from each other in life. And something that I've learned throughout my journey is that the people that people that attract to me and are pulled to me, a lot of people come out of the blue, complete strangers, and they just start telling me their life story, and they get emotional and stuff, right? And their story, funny enough, every person that I've experienced with, different individuals throughout my journey, I see myself in them. I've already done. I'm the person that's already been through every single thing that every person I've met that this has happened with has been through, and that's not coincidence. That's called fate. I'm a healer. I'm a natural healer. I'm a shaman, and so much more than. And I have so much to offer. So much. And I'll never run away from my problems. I did all my counseling, all that stuff. I've done that. My family has a bad appetite for not facing their issues head on, especially my sister. But I'm not going to get into that, because I don't have very many family members left, and so listen, this is a reach out to anybody who can relate respectively. This isn't a cry for attention. This is raw, naked, real. Head on. And if the person making the comments really is my son, if it really is you, I love you with all my heart. I do. You have no idea how much I miss you. I do. I miss you so much. And I can't wait to see you. And I want everything to be made right. And I want to make peace with this before going into 2026. Because it's been too long. Okay? So, and I'm praying that this isn't some sick fucking individual who knows too much about me. Okay? If it really is you, just email me, dude. I'll give you my phone number and we can talk and we can figure something out. Okay? From my heart to yours, dude. You're my best fucking friend. And you always will be. Okay? know that. If you really are my son, email me. The email's in the throat chakra video. It's right there on the picture. And I even say it in the video. Okay? So, look, I gotta get off of here because I just do. And so until next time, y'all, much love and thank you for tuning in to Shadow Nexus 13. And much love.